It appears one of the division rivals is talking smack already.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's good, everybody? Matt Derry with you. It is a Tuesday edition of Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day on a Tuesday, February 27th and a Wednesday, February 28th. Thanks for making us your first listen and checking us out wherever you get your podcast. Shout out to our everydayers that are out there. We appreciate all of you. I know there's some of you on our YouTube channel that comment all the time about I don't mention you. I'm going to get to you this week, I promise. We got Brett Whitefield from Fantasy Sports Tomorrow. Fantasy Points, tomorrow, the COO. This guy knows so much about scouting and so much about the draft. We're going to get Brett's thoughts as the combine is underway in Indianapolis. Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell both spoke today. We'll get to that. Another GM in the division is already talking some yang about the Lions. Okay. We'll get into that coming up momentarily. Jaylen Reeves-Mabin is back. What else do I have? I can't even read what's even on my screen right now. I'm going to put on the old readers and tell you. Oh, yeah. L'Jarius Sneed. Could he be a fit in Detroit? Yes. Sign me up. All of that today right here on Locked On Lions. Thanks for making us your first listen, like I said, and finding us wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Lions today brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Follow us on Twitter at Derry Speaks, at Locked On Lions, Matt Derry Facebook fan page, and again, our Locked On Lions YouTube channel. If you missed yesterday's show, Bradford Banta, the former Lions assistant coach, long snapper and tight end, was with us. He was great. So go back and check us out from yesterday with Brad Banta. I was going to lead today with news of the day, meaning Brad Holmes speaking at the combine, talking about cornerbacks, Dan Campbell talking about free agency, all of these things. And I even had it on the rundown if you're watching on the YouTube channel. I was going to go with that first, but I got to start with Brian Gutekunst of the Green Bay Packers. This is the general manager of the Packers. And look, Gutekunst is a pretty good GM. I'll be the first to tell you, I don't think he's bad. I think what the Packers have going right now is pretty good. They got a nice young team. They got a nice young quarterback, and they'll be right up there at the top of the division next year with the Lions. There will be a good battle going between Detroit and Green Bay. We saw it on Thanksgiving, right? You saw Rashawn Gary coming off the edge. You saw those young wide receivers get past the Lions secondary. You saw a young quarterback in Jordan Love develop. Right? This team has been put together by Brian Gutekunst. But this is also the guy that Aaron Rodgers was clowning on for years. And in his last 2 seasons, he's a general manager that is overseeing a team that is 17-17. All right. Brian Gutekunst today was asked about chasing the Lions in the division, which, quite honestly, that's what Green Bay's doing. The last 2 years. Sorry, Packers, you're chasing the Lions. You just are. You finished behind the Lions 2 years ago. You finished behind the Lions this year. Goody, as he's known in Green Bay, and this is from Matt Schneiderman of The Athletic, asked today about chasing the Lions at the combine, quote, around here, we've never hung banners for division championships. So it's never been about that. It's a nice starting point, but I think we're about looking for bigger things, end quote. Shots fired. First of all, most teams do hang banners for division championships, including in this city. All right. The Tigers do it. The Pistons have done it. The Wings have done it. Dude, you're 17-17 the last 2 years. You're the Green Bay Packers. Oh, they're just hanging all these banners in Green Bay, right? Brett Favre just brought in, 2, 3, 4 titles? Aaron Rodgers, 3 or 4 championships? No, bro. 2. You've hung 2 banners since you've been alive, Bri. Goody. 2. I know all about the Bart Starr and Lombardi era. Gutekunst's parents weren't even born then. Get out of here. Oh, we're all about hanging the good banners. Cool. You've hung 2, bro. Since what, 95, 97, whatever year they were. Favre won with Mike Holmgren. And Aaron Rodgers won his one, 2011? Then spent the last 3 years terrorizing you, and you let it happen? Oh, we're around here. We're never hanging banners for division championships. All right, well, maybe you should win one, dude, because you haven't the last 2 years. Hey, Brian, you can't hang a division championship banner because the Vikings hung one 2 years ago on your ass, and so did the Lions. You couldn't even get into the playoffs 2 years ago at home in week 18 against the Lions because the Lions punked you in your crib. Get out of here. We don't hang division banners around here. Cool. You haven't. You're a 500 football team the last 2 years, bro. The F out of here with that. This guy's got an 8-9 football team talking yang. Hey, look, Jordan Love looks good. You got your young receivers, Reed and Wicks and Dobbs and Christian Watson, cool. Aaron Jones, solid. Offensive lineman has been rebuilt. Rashawn Gary, I take him on the Lions right now. Your last 34 games, you're 17-17, man. Oh, but I'm big and tough. I'm going to make fun of the Lions hanging a division banner. So go right ahead. You're looking right up at them in the division 2 years in a row. The Lions have punked you 2 years in a row. Maybe you should shut the hell up. How about that? I love it. I love it. Good. That's like Ryan Pace of the Bears saying, once we win this division, we're never giving it up, except they can't win it. I mean, Brad Holmes doesn't talk like that. Give me a break. Give me a break. I hope Gutekunst is happy. That's going to be all over Allen Park. That's good. That quote is going to be billboard material. Good. We don't hang banners around here for division championships. Yeah, because you haven't won one in a while. Last 2 years, you haven't won one, man. Yeah, Gutekunst won plenty of divisions as GM when Aaron Rodgers was there. But the last 2 years, not good, dude. So keep talking. I love it. I think that's great. You know. The Detroit Lions this year went 12-5. Your team went 8-9. And you're making fun of the Lions for hanging a division championship banner? Okay. All right. That's cool. I love it. I dig it. So there you go. There's today's Shots Fired episode from the Locked On Lions podcast from Brian Gutekunst. Same guy that allowed Aaron Rodgers to pimp slap him around for a couple of years. Thank you, sir. May I have another? That's Brian Gutekunst. All right, coming up next, what did Brad Holmes say about cornerbacks? What did Dan Campbell say about a big free agent signing today when asked about it at the Combine in the beautiful city of Indianapolis? We will tell you that coming up next right here on Locked On Lions.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now you can go and shoot your shot with Locked On's official sports betting partners over at FanDuel with the NBA season underway. Right now, new customers will get $150 in bonus bets by simply winning any $5 bet. Doesn't matter if the odds are overwhelmingly in your favor. If with your first bet, you put $5 down and win, that's $150 your way just for winning that $5 bet. Yeah, it's like 30-1 odds. It's awesome. So you can put that in on a bunch of stuff with the NBA. You also check out NFL draft odds as well. Who's going to be the number 1 overall pick, the number 2 overall selection, all of that. You can check all that out. Plus quick bets, live same game parlays, exclusive props, and much more. So head over to fanduel.com/lockedon to get started today. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA.
It is, and also Locked On Lions today is sponsored by BetterHelp. All right, a lot of us spend some time wishing in our lives that we had more time. Question is, time for what? If time was unlimited, how would you use it? Best way to squeeze that special thing into your schedule is to know what's important to you and to make it a priority. Therapy can help you find what matters to you so you can do more of it. That's for sure. I've had a therapist for many, many years. Love having conversations and just sometimes talking to somebody that is neutral, that is right down the middle, that's going to listen to you. If you're thinking about starting up therapy, you should give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. I'm Matt Derry, back with you on Locked On Lions, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. Thanks to everybody that's an everydayer that checks us out either on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts each and every day. We appreciate you. All right, news of the day comes from the Combine, where, in fact, Dan Campbell spoke this morning. Lions head coach to the assembled media, and Brad Holmes this afternoon. Let's start with some of the things that Dan Campbell had to say. First and foremost, when discussing free agency and how the Lions were going to approach it, and there weren't any groundbreaking things that Dan Campbell said today, but there's two that stood out for me. Number one, when talking about free agency and building the team, Dan Campbell said today it starts with the draft. And he reiterated that he and Brad Holmes are on the same page about how you got to draft well. Then he said what you do then after the draft is you re-sign your good players. So it's about the draft, and it's about keeping guys here and that you want to keep and re-signing them. So you have to figure, the way Campbell was talking, they want to keep Jonah Jackson. They want to re-sign Graham Glasgow. Yesterday, the Lions signed Jaylen Reeves-Mabin to a brand new 2-year, $8 million deal. $4 million a year for, as Campbell said today, the best special teams player in the NFL. They want to keep good players around. You love to see that. Plus, you also love to see the fact that the Lions have players that want to stay in Detroit. Even better. So I thought that was an interesting comment from Dan Campbell today. The other thing that Campbell said was he was asked today about, now that we're a month removed from the NFC Championship game, is there anything you would have done differently in that game against the 49ers? And he thought about it for a second. And he's like, yeah, not really. And then he did say this. And this is what I love about Dan Campbell. He said he would not have run the football down by 10 late in the game on third down and then having to burn that timeout. Of course, the Lions converted a touchdown on the next play on the fourth down to make it a 3-point game as Jared Goff hit Jamison Williams. But the Lions had to burn that timeout, and it came back to bite them. He said he would not have run that David Montgomery play on 3rd and 1. He would have run it on 4th down. He would have thrown on 3rd down if he had to go back and do it over again, because then they had to use that timeout. But I like the fact that Dan Campbell admits his mistakes. There's accountability there. Jamison Williams missed that block, and it is what it is. But he was like, look, we had to burn a timeout there. And of course, they couldn't use that timeout later in the game after not getting the onside kick. So I give Campbell credit for that. As far as Brad Holmes goes, the Lions general manager, what I found interesting today about Holmes's comments was he stuck with the same type of talking points that he said on 97.1 the other morning about, look, we want to bring in good players. We want to, stick with the format here. We want to be smart in free agency. We want to stick to the plan, all of those things. So look, Brad Holmes may be targeting a big time player, He's not tipping his hand. But when he was asked about the cornerback position, Holmes said this today. He said, you can't have enough corners. You can't have enough good corners. But he said in this draft, he's seeing a lot of good corners and a lot of wide receivers. He said those are the two positions that he sees that there are there's a wide variety and a vast majority of good players are coming out as corners and receivers. He sees a lot of them, a big pool of those guys. That's what he said. He said you have to be selective in how you acquire cornerbacks, he said. And he also said he doesn't want to call himself a cornerback snob, but he was a cornerback cross-checker, meaning he scouted other cornerbacks, both in college and in the pros, when he worked for the Rams. So he knows what a good cornerback looks like. Now, it's obvious Brad Holmes doesn't know what a good kicker looks like because he spent 3 years trying to find one. I kid. Brad Holmes is awesome. But he says he knows corners. And so I like that. Because if at 29, and you know the Lions are going to take the best player available 29, it might not be a need. But if at 29 there's a corner they really like, or maybe it's at 26 or 23 and they need to move up, you know Brad Holmes is going to do it. But he said, I'm going to be selective. I know cornerbacks can never have enough good ones. And right now the Lions are in need. All right. There's certain wants you want to have. There's certain needs you want to have. They need cornerbacks. I don't think that's a secret here. Jerry Jacobs, will he be back? Kindle Vildor, will he be back? Will Harris, who knows? Cam Sutton and Brian Branch are two cornerbacks you know are going to be back next year. The young kid Gilmore, you have to figure, is going to get an opportunity to come back next year. He was on the roster all year and was basically deactivated every week. His older brother, Stephon Gilmore, is a free agent. And that leads me to the next story here, which is, would Brad Holmes be willing to hit a home run and go after one of the best cornerbacks in football in L'Jarius Sneed? ESPN's Jeremy Fowler reports that today the Chiefs have informed Sneed, who's really, really good, they are prepared to franchise tag him, but they're also open to consummating a trade if the two sides cannot agree on a long-term contract. Sneed is reportedly agreeable to this scenario, giving him a chance to talk with other teams while Kansas City remains in play. I mean, if you're the Kansas City Chiefs, all right, and you've got a shutdown, number one, stud cornerback like L'Jarius Sneed, and you're a Super Bowl contender again, you just won it 2 years in a row, you're really going to let this guy go? What would a L'Jarius Sneed trade look like? I'm assuming the Lions would have to give up number 29 to get him. I'm not assuming that first round pick would be going to Kansas City. You have to figure multiple picks, not multiple number ones, but I mean, L'Jarius Sneed is awesome. All right. And that's another prime example of a guy that got drafted, a young kid that developed and turned into a stud. All right. But the Chiefs have only 6 draft picks in this upcoming draft. So, you know, if they're considering using the franchise tag on him, it's obvious he doesn't want to be tagged necessarily, because now they're talking about open to a trade. The fact that Sneed is agreeable to it, I think, is good for Kansas City, because it just seems like, hey, let's have a good relationship with him. Let's not burn a bridge. Let's not just tag him and get him upset. This is all part of the negotiation. But if Sneed's looking around and says, Detroit, that's a place for me. I can go there and be their number one guy, their number one corner. And the Lions are interested in maybe breaking the bank and giving them big time cash. And maybe the Chiefs aren't. Lions have more money to spend than Kansas City, who also, by the way, they need to re-sign Chris Jones. This could get interesting. If you're Brad Holmes, you've got to be on the phone with Brett Veach, the Chiefs GM, and Andy Reid and those people. Absolutely. See if it could happen. Could you imagine? I mean, L'Jarius Sneed is a all-pro stud corner. I never thought he'd hit the open market. But apparently, at least right now, it appears Chiefs are letting him and his agent talk to some teams. See if there's a fit. I hope one of those teams is the Lions. How do you say no to L'Jarius Sneed? All right, coming up next, we mentioned Jaylen Reeves-Mabin coming back. I gotta comment on it because it's a bigger signing than you think. I'll explain next, right here on Locked On Lions. Program today brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your car and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's guaranteed fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit. Only available to U.S. customers. So yesterday, as I was actually loading in the podcast, the news started to break. It did break. The Lions are keeping around one of their own free agents. Jaylen Reeves-Mabin is back, and he signs a 2-year reported $8 million contract, getting $4 million a year. Gets a nice little bonus boost in the money. He gets multiple years, and of course, Jaylen Reeves-Mabin this past year was the Pro Bowl representative for the NFC for special teams. And I love what Dan Campbell said today. First of all, I love when Campbell calls him Germ, JRM. But he said Germ is awesome and leader in the locker room, the best special teamer in the league. But here's the thing I liked about Jaylen Reeves-Mabin this year. Number one, you want to keep good people around. You want to bring back guys who want to be here. Jaylen was here originally, then went to Houston after signing with the Texans, and immediately came back to Detroit, wanted to come back, and did come back last year. But he played really well defensively in spot duty at linebacker. He covers tight ends. He covers running backs. He was good. He was good, defending the pass, defending the run. And I thought it was an extremely valuable piece to have on your team. And you go back and you look at when the Patriots were winning championships. And of course, it was Tom Brady and Belichick and everything else. They had a guy like Matthew Slater, who was a leader, who was respected veteran, and a great special teamer. And you got to have guys like that on your team. Steve Tasker, when the Bills kept going to the Super Bowl, leader, special teams guy, bit player, receiver. Jaylen Reeves-Mabin does not care about anything but winning, about anything but his teammates. Throw him out there on defense, does the job. Some games might not play a lot because you got Derek Barnes, you got Rodrigo, you got Jack Campbell, you got Alex Anzalone. He's really the last linebacker on the team. Yet, Aaron Glenn found a way to use him. All right. He excelled when he played. And then if they took him out of the game, he came to the sidelines with a smile on his face. These are the type of winning players you want on your team. So, yes, under the radar, and it's not a headline that, the Lions are bringing back Jaylen Reeves-Mabin, but he was here for some lean years and, under the previous regime and all of that. And all he's done is come back, and he's a great, great special teams player. He had some enormous hits on punt coverage and kick coverage this year. And he embodies what the Lions are about. So I love that they retained him. I love that he's back. And I'm excited. I'm excited to see a number 44 in a Lions uniform for at least another 2 years. But that's kind of what Dan Campbell was talking about today. We want to re-sign our good players. And it's not breaking the bank. You're giving them $4 million a year. Lions have more money to spend. And those are the kind of glue guys you need if you want to win. And so I commend the Lions for doing that. And I commend Jaylen Reeves-Mabin for not holding out for a third year or trying to get more money somewhere else. Stays with Detroit. It's affordable. wants to be here, and you know that C on his chest will be back next year as the special teams captain for this team. It helps Dave Phipp, helps the staff to have a guy like that that's a leader that the young team, young players look up to. And it's still a young team. Despite the fact that they just hang division banners. Yeah, well, young guys, veterans, whatever. This group of Lions won 14 football games this year. That's pretty darn good. And Jaylen Reeves-Mabin was a big reason why. All right, Scouting Combine is underway. We're going to dive deeper into it tomorrow with Brett Whitefield. We love having Brett on the show. We'll talk about corners. We'll talk about edge rushers. We'll talk about all of that stuff. I got a mock draft tomorrow as well for all you everydayers where the Lions take an edge rusher at 29. We'll do all of that tomorrow right here on Locked On Lions. Thanks for making us your first listen. Checking us out wherever you get your podcasts. Have a good election day, rest of your Tuesday. And we will talk again tomorrow right here on Locked On Lions. See you, everybody.